Good morning. Good morning. So you're all awake, and now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. So I'd like everybody to close your eyes, and I'm going to say a phrase, and what I'd like you to do is repeat that phrase after me. So I'll say the phrase first, and then you can repeat it. I am an expert, and then you fill in what field you're in. Ready? I am an expert in the field of marketing. Great. Now just make a mental note of how it feels to say that. And with your eyes still closed, I want you to repeat another phrase after me. Again, I'll say it first, and you can repeat it after me. I am an educator and an advocate for the success of my clients. Ready? I am an educator and an advocate for the success of my clients. And just make a mental note of how it feels to say that. Okay, you can open your eyes now, and let's take a quick poll. How many people feel comfortable saying and being an expert in their field? Raise your hands. Okay, good. Some of you, great. And how many people here feel comfortable being an educator and an advocate for the success of your clients? Good. Well, whether you're comfortable being an expert or being an educator and an advocate or both, you're in the right place. Welcome to this experience, Authority Marketing, becoming a recognized expert in the digital attention span economy. I'm Gayle Nowak, founder of The Story Stylist, where we turn business owners, leaders, visionaries, change makers into subject matter experts by positioning your expertise into a cohesive story and strategy that gets people clamoring to know more about you. Even if you've not yet been in the media, even if you've not written that book, even if you've not given that TED Talk, and even if the thought of doing any of these things sounds a little overwhelming or time-consuming or even kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies just a little bit. So I've been in the business of finding, developing, and promoting stories for more than 20 years, first as a journalist, and then as an award-winning PR executive, and of course now as a business owner. And may I share with you a story of one of my experiences that changed what my perception of being an expert is for good. Okay, great, thank you. So one of the most unforgettable moments of my career to date was taking and being part of the team who helped body dysmorphic disorder expert Dr. Catherine Phillips with her appearance on Oprah. And getting a client on Oprah, as you can imagine, is pretty exciting and amazing and unforgettable in and of itself. But that's not why this was such a profound moment for me personally and in my career. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with body dysmorphic disorder, it is a mental illness in which the person who has it sees themselves very differently than you and I would see them. In fact, when they look in the mirror, they see a distorted image of themselves staring back at them. And Dr. Phillips is a world-renowned psychologist who specializes in BDD. In fact, she literally wrote the book on it called The Broken Mirror. So Oprah was doing a segment on this often misunderstood and not well-known disorder. A lot of people chalk it up to vanity, and it has absolutely nothing to do with vanity. And so we went to Oprah with Dr. Phillips, and we got to sit in the audience, the studio audience, which was really exciting. And Oprah had two guests on the couch with her, a young man and a young woman. This is Taryn, one of her guests. And I remember sitting there listening to Taryn talk about how she cries herself to sleep every night because she doesn't want to wake up the next morning and look at herself in the mirror. And when Taryn told Oprah, I just don't understand how God could make someone as hideous as me, I remember looking over at Dr. Phillips, who was sitting next to Taryn's parents, and just seeing the heartbreak and the pain and the despair wash over her parents' faces as Taryn was sharing her deepest and darkest thoughts with Oprah and obviously with the world. And it was in that moment that I realized, wow, how many people in this audience, how many people watching at home are going through something similar, feeling alone, feeling hopeless, and not knowing until this very moment that there was somebody out there who could help them. So I share this story not to impress you, but to impress upon you the power of authority and the power of being recognized as an expert. Now, we might not have world-renowned doctors or psychologists in the room, and we might, and frankly, it doesn't really matter. Because I'm willing to bet every single one of you has a story, maybe many stories about helping your clients, helping people. Stories that aren't necessarily being told. And as a result, someone, maybe many people, your people are not being helped. And so that's why it's the driving mission of the Story Stylist to go out and find business owners and leaders like you who are doing great work and position you as an expert so that you get recognized for that great work and you get paid for that great work and you can impact more people. Now, I'm also here today to show you that you don't have to arrive at this destination of being an expert in order to be perceived as one. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I dive into that, I just want to very quickly thank the Enterprise Center for having me back. I want to thank Leslie and Amanda and Bill for their help this morning and coordinating everything. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time and the energy to be here today. So you're going to learn how to make it easy for others to call you an expert. You're going to learn what your best prospects are most influenced by, even in the digital attention span economy, and you're going to get 3 steps that are going to help you tap into your own natural authority immediately. And my big goal for you today is to bust the myths around what it actually means to be an expert, because I want you to leave today feeling excited and embracing the idea of your own authority. So there's going to be a little bit of me talking and instructing today, but I also want you to be able to leave with some foundational pieces. So I'm going to try to make this as engaging as possible. You're going to be doing a little bit of work today. It is a workshop, after all. But I want you to leave with some pieces as well so that you have the foundation for developing and growing your authority platform. Now, because I can't give you everything that I'd like to give you in the time that we have today, I will, towards the end, very briefly give you a way to take the next step if you feel that you need support in developing and growing your authority platform. Sound good? Okay. Hi, Mike.
Morning.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Missed you.
I missed you too. All right, so let's start with what we mean when we say digital attention span economy. So what it takes to stand out in the marketplace has changed dramatically over the last few years. Competition for your prospects' attention is fierce. Because of the popularity of online media has increased so much, our attention spans have decreased, right? And that's because we're constantly bombarded with email, text messages, social media, YouTube, you name it. It's information all day, every day. And couple that with the fact that we've all lived through what I like to call the era of the microwave mindset. So let me just ask you, who remembers ordering things through catalogs or doing mail order? All right, awesome. Anybody remember? Anybody know what this is? Clearly there are pictures on here and I have no idea what to do with this now. So when I was in high school and in college, I had a photography hobby. And part of that time was even before the days that you could go to CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid to get your film developed. I had to send this out to the lab to get it developed. I don't think those labs exist anymore. But do you remember how long it would take to get your stuff back to get your order? Anybody remember?
Weeks.
Weeks.
Yeah, weeks.
It took weeks, right? And the waiting was like the worst part. So we don't have that today, do we? No, we don't. Today, instant availability has replaced that waiting, because today we have this. We don't even have cameras, right? We have a phone. We point it, click, and there's a picture. Today, once we make a decision to buy something, when do we want it?
Tomorrow.
We want it now, right? We want it now. So think about how that's true for much of our shopping experience today. You know, up until recently, we could spend time, for example, picking out our Friday night movie at Blockbuster. You know, I used to go to Tower Records and Newbury Comics and pick out my CDs and even cassettes back in the day. I went by a Newbury Comics a couple of weeks ago. There's no music in there anymore. It's all T-shirts and toys and tchotchkes, right? Luckily, we still have some bookstores that we can hang out in, but generally speaking, we used to take more time making our buying decisions. With the advent of online services like Netflix, iTunes, Amazon, that shopping experience has basically been replaced. And these types of services are a huge factor in creating this digital attention span economy. And they're also a huge factor in taking our decision-making process that used to sometimes take months and weeks and whittling it down to days, hours, sometimes even seconds. So the good news is that even though the time that it takes for us to make our buying decisions has dramatically decreased, the process that our brain is going through hasn't changed all that much. So our emotions and our subconscious mind decide what we're going to buy. And then our conscious mind finds the rational justifications for those buying decisions. So that is pretty much still the same. Now, in the days of being able to go to your Blockbuster or you go to the bookstore when it's easier to see it and touch it and hear it. Blockbuster, you can smell that Starbucks, you can still taste that scone. It was a lot easier for our conscious mind to justify those emotional buying decisions because it was a very sensory-oriented experience. Netflix, iTunes, Amazon, thank you. You've pretty much eliminated the opportunity for that sensory experience to inform our buying decisions. And that's where trust triggers come into play. Trust triggers have replaced the role of those experiences. And you may have noticed this when you log on to your Netflix account. You might see something that says trending now or popular on Netflix. iTunes has a what's hot section. Amazon has that little thing on the bottom when you're looking at your products. So you're looking at a specific product and there's a bunch of other products on the bottom. And they say, oh, customers who bought this product have also bought these products. And those are all trust triggers. If you haven't noticed them before, you'll notice them after today. And what they're doing is creating something called the bandwagon effect. So when we're seeking rational justification and our conscious mind and our emotions can't provide that justification, then our conscious mind defaults to placing our trust in the crowd. In other words, in the bandwagon. So trust triggers give the conscious mind reasons to rationally justify emotional decisions, not only about what we buy, but also about who we buy from. So in a matter of seconds, our brains are scanning for things like reputation. In other words, do people say good things about working with Kelly? Or resonance. In other words, geez, I really feel like Kathy gets me. She understands me. I really like her. I trust her. And qualification, as in, well, Joe gets me, but is there proof that he can actually help me solve my problem. So these are all the things that our mind looks to resolve when we're making a decision about who we buy from. And authority trust triggers can provide that justification because people want to work with experts, and authority trust triggers position you as an expert in your field. And that makes it easy for the conscious mind to justify working with you, even if it costs more. Sound good? Yeah. Now, the reason why we started out with the exercise in the beginning is because when it comes to authority and these authority trust triggers and being an expert, you talking about you doesn't really work. And that's likely why some of you didn't raise your hand when you said, oh, when I asked you, do you feel comfortable calling yourself an expert? And those who did raise your hand, that just tells me you're a little bit further along and you developed a certain mindset. And we're going to talk about that mindset in a little bit. But really, authority trust triggers are about enabling other people to determine your expert status for themselves. Okay, so the first step in becoming a recognized authority in the digital attention span economy is to make it easy for others to call you an expert. So before I talk about how you do that, I want to address and deal with some of these expert myths, okay? So the top 5 expert myths are, you have to call yourself the expert. Number 2, an expert knows more than everyone else. Number 3, an expert is the very best in their field. Number 4, it takes years to build your expert reputation and become recognized as an authority in your field. And number 5, I'm not ready to put myself out there as an expert. Can anybody relate to any of these statements? Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully by the end of today, you'll see that these really are all myths, okay? I'm going to start with the first one. We'll address all of these, but I want to start right at the top because when we try to convince others that we're the expert and we're not really on board with that, it's hard not to focus on how we compare to other people in our field, whether it's colleagues, other experts in the field, our competitors, and that can create a lot of discomfort. It can trigger imposter syndrome or the fear of being found out that we're saying we're something when we feel like we're not really that, okay? So this can create a lot of anxiety. It can create a lack of self-confidence, and it's a problem, right? So the other reason why I had you do the exercise in the beginning is because I wanted to get you subconsciously reframing this right from the start. Because being an expert and being an authority is really about being an educator and an advocate, okay? And I think everybody raised their hands. Most people raised their hands when I asked you if you were comfortable calling yourself an educator and an advocate, because you care. You care about the success of your clients. You empathize with them. You solve problems for them. You deliver solutions for them, right? And so when you think about it that way, doesn't that feel better? Don't you feel more confident about that? Yeah, because you're already doing it, right? You already know that's who you are. And that's really what it means to be an expert. That's really what it means to be an authority. So let's take a look at our celebrity friends here, Tyra, Richard, Susie, and Dave. Do they constantly call themselves the expert when you think about their programs or anything that you've read or heard about them? Do they call themselves the expert? No, they might be introduced by somebody else. Are they the smartest or the best in their field? We don't really know, do we? They're certainly very well known, but they might not be the smartest or the best in their field. They've applied some of the principles that you're going to learn today. They have a certain mindset. Richard, I adore Richard, but is he the fittest guy in the fitness industry? No, but man, he's the authority, right, for a certain group of people. Are they recognized as educators and advocates for the success of others? Absolutely, absolutely. So the reason why is because they've developed this authority mindset. They've put some of these practices into place. And if you don't already have this mindset, hopefully you will after today. Because when we stop trying to convince others that we're the expert and we focus on being a champion for our customers, that's when we make it easy for others to call us an expert. So that's the first step. Make it easy for others to call you an expert by doing what you're already doing, right? By delivering great service, helping to solve problems, and being a champion for your customers. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so let's go on to the next step. Step 2 is to define your mission. So this is where I'd like you to partner up with someone. If we don't have enough people to partner up, you can certainly do this on your own. If you are feeling bold and social, feel free to get up out of your seat and meet somebody new. Otherwise, you can just partner up with somebody right next to you. And what you're going to do is we're going to walk through a little exercise, and I want you to each ask each other, what do you do? Because we're always getting this question, right? We're out networking, we're coming to events like this, we're meeting people, we're having conversations, and inevitably this question of what do you do comes up. All right, so just take a moment, partner up. One person will ask the other, what do you do? The person who's asking, I want you to listen to what your partner says and write it down for them. And then you're going to switch, okay? And then I'll tell you what to do next. So I'll give you a moment to do that right now. You guys
We have an odd number.
Okay,
Sorry.
do you want me to partner with you?
Sure.
All right, let me just grab something to write with. Okay, so
Yeah.
Give you another minute to wrap it up. How we doing? Has everybody got their answers to their questions? I know, I'm seeing that. Okay, so this is great. You guys got to talk to each other. You get to know each other a little bit. So, Karen and Amy, can you be my volunteers? All right. So, Karen, when you asked Amy what she does, what did Amy say?
Okay, she said, I work with a nonprofit called Change is Simple. We partner with schools to instill lifelong social and environmental responsibility in kids through hands-on learning.
Okay, great. And Amy, what did Karen say when you asked her?
Karen said she worked for Curves in Topsfield, and she's the owner of that particular place, location. It's a gym designed for women, 30-minute workouts. Their mission is to strengthen women, and they have one-on-one coaches to help women.
Okay. Did everybody hear what they said? A little bit? All right. I'm just going to read Amy's. All right. So Amy said, I work with a nonprofit called Change is Simple. We partner with schools to instill lifelong social and environmental responsibility in kids with hands-on learning. Okay. And then Karen said, I own. Go ahead.
Say it again. I'm the owner of Curves Gym for Women in Topsfield.
Okay, so she's the owner of Curves Gym for Women in Topsfield. Okay, so nothing wrong with these answers, right? Clear, direct. I don't know if you picked up on this, but when we're out networking and we answer this question at face value directly, right? Which I'm not saying you shouldn't, but we kind of can't help making the conversation about ourselves and about our business and about our job, right? And so I want to flip this around a little bit because I heard elements of where we're going with this already, which is great. But I really want you to keep in mind that authorities don't have a job. We have a mission. Okay, and I heard some of the mission even in these responses, so that's great. So it's just a matter of flipping things around a little bit. I'm going to walk you through how you can do that. So when somebody's coming up to you and saying, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do? I want you to translate that into your mission by answering the following questions. So the first question is, who do you help? Who makes a great client for you? Who do you have the most success in helping? Who do you enjoy helping the most? And it's not up there. Oh, thank you. So write notes as we go through these questions, but you might want to put aside some time later today or tomorrow to really think about your answers to some of these questions. But for now, just write what comes to you. So the next question is, what do you help them accomplish? All right, so what is that big outcome or result that they're wanting that you can help them achieve? The next question is, how do you help them accomplish that? So that's kind of like the what do you do question. You can talk about your specialty, you can talk about your company, but this really actually goes a little bit deeper because you want to also convey how you get your clients from point A to point B. How do you help them bridge that gap between where they are and where they want to go? And then finally, why? Why do you help them? What's your personal drive behind it? What led you to help the people you help in the way that you help them? And this actually really goes back to your brand story or your personal story around the work that you do. I actually work with clients on this facet as a focus. I help them develop their personal stories and their brand stories. So this is something that you can really dive deep into. For today, I just want you to come up with a couple of sentences that explain the why behind the work that you do. Okay? So take another moment to just write down any notes. And then what I'd like you to do is craft that into a concise and cohesive response to the question, what do you do? And if you're a little stuck with this, just imagine somebody came up to you, asked you that question, and you start to say, I am on a mission to help, who, do what, how, and why. Okay? So just take another moment to do that. Okay, give you a few more seconds to finish up. Okay, so you can spend a little bit more time on this later today, tomorrow, but I want to go back to our volunteers from earlier. So Karen and Amy, can you tell me how things may have changed a little bit in the way that you responded from the beginning?
Yeah. So, I mean, as soon as I said that to her in the first place, when you said tell what you do, I knew right off the bat it was going to be that I said what I always say to her, but I knew, okay, I realize now that's not very helpful, you know. So anyway, so what I did was I just tried to answer those questions. What's my mission? You know, and it comes out a lot more emotionally impactful or whatever.
Yeah, do you mind sharing it with us?
Okay. So I said, I am on a mission to strengthen women by providing a 30-minute strength training workout that's fun, fast, and safe because it helped me lose 25 pounds and get my strength back after years of neglecting my health.
Mm. What do you think of that? Yeah. How does it feel to say that? Way better. Right. Yes, Mike.
It almost doesn't need a call to action.
No, almost. Right? Because you know who she's helping and what kind of results she can get. I bet you probably could think of, you know, maybe some of you were thinking, oh, I know somebody that she can help. Right? It's clear who you could refer to her, right? I could see a change just in the way you sort of settled into your mission, right? Like it's solid. Amy, how about you? Because you talked about your mission a little bit. So I think for you it's just flipping it a little bit.
I hit three of the pieces, but the why I realized wasn't summed up.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually just answered each of the questions to see what I had done. But who do you help? So elementary kids, schools, and teachers, I did address that. What do you help them accomplish? Instill social and environmental responsibility, and how is through hands-on learning workshops. The why is because our planet needs educated advocates and champions of sustainability for a brighter future.
Oh.
I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
but you know, I felt that is a why.
Exactly. So can you see that when you have this mission and you lead with your mission, it makes it easier for others to connect with you on a deeper level and in a more meaningful way, in a clearer way too, right? So that's why you want to have your mission ready to go so that when you're getting this question, because I know you're getting it all the time, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do? And you know what, there are going to be moments where you're just like, yeah, I own a marketing company, right? You're going to have those days, but when you're hooked into your mission, you are passionate, you believe it, that translates to other people, and it makes it really clear about who they can refer to you, who you help, who makes great clients for you, okay? So this is how you're conveying being a champion for your clients, okay? And it also makes it easier for you to take this next step, which is stepping into your own authority. So this is a great quote by Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing in life worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. Now, I would add to this that the way you get people to talk about you in the way that you want them to talk about you is to give them something to talk about, okay? And you do that by creating these authority trust triggers like our celebrity entrepreneurs here. And the cool thing is that you don't have to be a celebrity to do this. You could certainly model what they're doing. You can model this authority mindset. So what I'd like to do is walk through some examples of authority trust triggers so that you can use them to create your own bandwagon effect. Now, earlier we were talking about trust triggers on Amazon and iTunes and Netflix. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that you walk around with a t-shirt that says, "What's hot?" You could do that and you might get attention, but that's not the same thing as these authority trust triggers. So here's some examples. Anybody here win an award recently or ever in your career? Okay, so there's a trust trigger. You folks are sitting on a trust trigger. And this is an example of one of our clients. This is Dina and Stuart Young. with landmark finish. Last spring, they were nominated. They didn't win the award yet. They were nominated for a Best of North Shore Homes award. So we're all probably familiar with the Bonds Awards, right? Yeah, so Dina and Stuart hired me to help them get the word out about this nomination. So we put together a campaign for them. I wrote up a press release for them. We had a specific call to action in that press release for people to go and vote. It included a quote from the Youngs. It included a photo of one of their projects, information about the award. And then we sent it out nationally. So even though this is a local awards program, we sent it out nationally. It was picked up in dozens of online news media sites and the major search engines. And then we took that coverage and leveraged it back into their marketing. So instead of them saying, hey, we won an award on their social media and their marketing, we tweaked it a little bit and said, hey, we're getting national media coverage for our award nomination. And within that campaign was also a call to action for people to go and vote. So guess what happened in October? They won the Reader's Choice Award for their category. So they're a cabinet maker, right? So they won in the millwork and cabinetry Reader's Choice Award. So we did the same thing. We put together a very similar campaign to get the word out about the fact that they won this award. So they're now positioned as an award-winning company, but we're also starting to position them as leaders locally and regionally in closing the trade skills gap, because they're doing a lot of work in the community with vocational schools and tech schools, training the next generation of trades workers. All of that came from an award nomination that happened a year ago. And so you can see how just winning an award can start to position you a little bit differently in your market, okay? Sometimes these awards programs take a lot of effort and take a lot of time to submit to. Sometimes they're easy. If you're gonna take the time to do that, or if somebody's going to take the time to do that on your behalf, you might as well leverage as much of it as you can, okay? Kathy.
If you have an award from a different field, how do you leverage that?
Can you give me a little bit more detail?
So I have an award from teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and then now I'm a mediator.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how to kind of leverage. Is there a way to?
There could be a way to do that. I mean, are you sort of teaching in your mediation?
Yes, I'm new. I'm creating a new business, but
Okay.
yeah, that would be yes. As
Yeah.
well, tell me how to.
Yeah, I mean, I would need to know a little, see a little bit more of what you're doing, but I think that there's probably, I'd really love to find the hook
Yeah.
to sort of, not spin it, I don't want to say spin it, but make the connection between, because there's a lot of people out there who are changing careers now, right? That's also part of our digital attention span economy, and sort of reinventing themselves. But oftentimes when you're clear kind of about your story and your journey, the connections between those things that seemingly appear different are actually there, and they run through it, okay? So, all right. Interviews, being interviewed on a TV show or radio show, podcast, even if you've never heard of that person or you've never seen them before, you still recognize them with being an authority because they're on somebody else's show. They're getting that third-party endorsement. And I think most of us are pretty savvy media consumers. We know that there's a vetting process in order to be on somebody else's show, right? Being a best-selling author, being an author, but being a best-selling author. So this is an example of another one of our clients. This is ML Tandon. Mr. Tandon is the founder and chairman of a group called Tandon Group. They're a multinational company, and Mr. Tandon is just very well known, very well recognized in his home country of India. He's been around for about 50 years. He was a pivotal part of the personal computing age, and he is considered an expert in the electronics manufacturing industry. He's also done a lot of work to transform the Indian economy and transform women's right to work in India. So I would say in his own right, he truly is an authority and an expert, but he's not very well known here in the States, even though Tandon Group has headquarters in Silicon Valley. And so Tandon Group hired me to build up and grow his expert reputation here in the States. And part of the campaign that we put together for him was to take all of his achievements and all of his stories and package it up into a chapter that we submitted to this business anthology called Expert Profiles. So that was in the fall that we pulled all that together for him and submitted it to the anthology. It was released right before the holidays in December, and the day that it was released, it hit the #1 bestseller for free enterprise and business ethics. And so now Mr. Tandon is getting known as somebody who has contributed to this best-selling book. So I wouldn't necessarily call him a best-selling author, but it's kind of that in-between place, right? So if you don't have a book and you don't want to write a book, this is kind of something that you can do to boost your reputation and get that bestseller status. And we did something very similar with him, where we had a press release about his involvement in the book, and then also a press release about his him being in a best-selling book. And he's getting interviews, and it's just a process of developing these different types of authority trust triggers. Okay, so when we go to Amazon and we look at the bestseller list, it kind of works the same way as an interview. So if you don't recognize the authors, just by default, our subconscious mind takes that trust trigger and gives us a reason to consider those folks to be an expert. So why are these trust triggers, these authority trust triggers, so powerful? It's because it's not Madeline telling me that she's an expert. It's because I saw her in an interview, or I saw that she wrote a book, or I saw that she won an award in an area that I need help with. Okay? So it's really just about positioning yourself in a slightly different way. And you might be thinking, like, I'm not Dave Ramsey, I'm not Richard, I'm not Tyra. And I say, good, because they're not you. Right? They're not you. And I'll defer to entrepreneur, author, and speaker Mike Dooley. This is a magnet that I have in my office on my file cabinet. This is also something I was touring the Beverly Middle School the other day, because my daughter's going there. And I saw something very similar to this in the middle school. And of course, I geeked out over it because I was like, oh, great, they're teaching this to the kids too. But the one thing all famous authors, world-class athletes, business tycoons, singers, actors, and celebrated achievers in any field have in common is that they all began their journeys when they were none of these things. Right? Just like our celebrity friends. They weren't born celebrities, and they weren't born experts. And neither are we. So one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that in the digital attention span economy, our best prospects are most influenced by messages that are concise and delivered by a perceived expert and are easy to consume. So that's why when we see our TV and radio interviews, they're only a couple of minutes long, right? Podcasts might be a little bit longer format, but even a lot of those are 15, 20, 30 minutes. Amazon has a bestseller list dedicated to books specifically that you can read in 15 minutes. They have categories for everything, but there's a reason why there are books that you can read in 15 minutes, right? Again, it's just part of this digital world that we're living in. TED Talks are only 18 to 20 minutes long. So you want your content to be concise and easy and quick to consume. Even William Shakespeare was on this way back in the day. Brevity is the soul of wit. And I say brevity plus recognition equals authority and profit in the digital attention span economy. And that's why you want your authority messages to be bite-sized, results-driven, easy to consume, easy to share, and easy to create. This is a big deal for our clients because they're busy. They have a lot of demands on their attention. And it really doesn't make sense for them to be focused on creating this. They have other things that they need to do and take care of. And I'm going to walk you through kind of some of the processes that we use to help our clients create that. But before I do, I want you to think about what brought you here today. If you've been struggling to get noticed in our noisy digital world, if you've been struggling to influence the people who you know you can impact the most, imagine instead what it would be like to take the stage and be instantly recognized and trusted by your best prospects. Okay? Imagine how much more revenue per month you could bring in without necessarily adding more people, new people, and without necessarily changing your closing rate. Because developing your authority platform is key to doing that. And the reason why is perceived authority gives your existing audience, your warm audience, people who already know, like, and trust you, a reason to pick up the phone and call you and say yes to working with you. So imagine just 5% more people picking up the phone today and saying, I saw your award, I saw you on TV, I'm ready to work with you. Just 5% is a small shift. But can you see that that could make a big impact on your business? Yeah. So developing your authority platform will certainly help that, but it will also help bring in new people and your closing rate as well. So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds good. How do I make that happen? And you have 3 choices. You can do nothing, and nothing will change. You can take what you're learning today, and I encourage this, take what you're learning today and start applying it. Okay? Now, what I will say is this might take a little bit longer if you want to do it on your own. It might take a year or 2. It might not ever get done because, let's face it, not only is competition for your prospects' attention fierce, it's fierce for your attention as well, right? And then the third choice is you can try one of our Authority Advantage programs or Authority Agency services. And we can professionally launch your platform, and you'll be covered in dozens of online media sites and search engines every single time we put out a piece of authority content for you. And this can happen in a matter of months, it can happen in a matter of weeks, it can happen in a matter of days, depending on the size of your campaign and how quickly you want to work. So I'd like to offer you an opportunity to speak with me about that privately and sign up for a 30-minute authority positioning call. We'll look at your current positioning, we'll see what can be improved, and we'll plot a path to more recognition and revenue for you. So I want to be really clear about this. I don't think we have necessarily too many brand spanking new business owners here, but this call is really more for established businesses. If you're brand new and you need to focus on creating your business and getting clients, this is something for later on, at a later stage in your business. If you don't have a clearly defined market, this is not necessarily for you because it's hard to position you in a certain market if you don't know what that is. And if you're terrified about being visible, this is also not for you because this is all about visibility, okay? But if you're an established business owner, you're truly an educator and an advocate for your clients, you're ready for more visibility, and you're on a mission, then this call may be for you. So if you want to grab one of these, I have a limited number set aside every month. It's a first come, first served basis. It is something that I offer to the public. For the public, it's $150 because you're here. And if you sign up today, they're completely complimentary. So if you want to grab one of these, in your packet, there's a sheet that looks like this. So you can select some times and days that work for you, and then I'll be in touch to confirm the time of your call. Sound good? Okay, so let's get into creating some of this content for you, okay? So digital attention span content is not about dumping information on people. And as educators and advocates, there's a real temptation to do that sometimes, right? Because we just want to help, and we want people to know what we know, but that can create a fire hose effect. So instead, I want you to think about this as providing a solution and encouraging action. And the way that we do that with our clients is by creating problem-solution recipes. And we create these problem-solution recipes by answering one single question. And that question is, what problem do you solve? So I'm going to walk you through an example of this, and then I'm going to have somebody come up and create one for themselves with me. So in this example, we have a social media manager who has a client that's a consultant, and they need more clients. They specifically are wanting strategies for getting clients on LinkedIn. So that's the problem. How do I get clients on LinkedIn? The solution that our social media manager is proposing is, well, you got to start with optimizing your LinkedIn profile. So that's one solution. And then our social media manager has a recipe about how to write a powerful LinkedIn profile summary. And there's steps to this recipe. Don't make it a resume, write in first person, speak to your target audience, say what you stand for, and format your summary. So you can see that there's different steps, right? That's kind of why we call it a recipe. So you can have a single problem that has multiple solutions. And for each solution, you can have multiple recipes. So if we break down the example, the LinkedIn strategy is just one particular problem. Optimize your profile is the particular solution that we're focusing on, but growing your network on LinkedIn might be another solution. Using groups might be another solution. And you can see that each of these solutions have multiple recipes to it. Okay, so for the optimized profile solution, there's a recipe for optimizing, writing a powerful LinkedIn profile summary that attracts clients. You can also optimize your photo. You can optimize your headline, so on and so on. So can you see how this can add up very quickly, this kind of content, if you just brainstorm for 20 minutes even, the types of problems that you can solve and map it out in this way. And I encourage you to do that. Definitely take some time to do that. So does anybody want to kind of walk through this with me right now? We can come up with a problem solution recipe. Now, want to come up? Sure. Okay. So let's go to the board. Just go make sure this is on. So Madeline, tell us a little bit about you.
So I am a expressive arts therapist and a small business owner with my partner Natalie over there. We work in Beverly. We own a private group practice. What else?
Okay? So what is a solution? What is a problem that your clients have?
We have probably the clients have. It's not a problem that I have. Okay. Sorry, I have to rethink this now. So we work with a lot of people with mental illness, with anxiety, depression, trauma, and we are working with them to help them feel better.
Okay. Feel. I want to feel. So the problem is, how do I feel better or less anxious?
Mm-hmm.
We could say. Okay. So what is just one solution that you can provide? Can everybody see this? I know my chicken scratch.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So when I came up here, I had a different idea of a problem.
Okay.
That is more about our business.
Okay.
And it's more about getting more adult clients and not children clients. Is that kind of, would that go along with that, or I can?
Well, that would be an example of maybe someone who's a business consultant helping you get the right clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go around.
Yeah. Let's stick with this.
So a solution is kind of using a kind of approach, a different treatment modality that would help to teach them relaxation skills, to help manage their anxiety, distress tolerance. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Is there a certain name for that modality?
Dialectical behavioral therapy is one, cognitive behavioral therapy, and then we use the expressive arts with those. So a lot of times with anxiety, it's hard to verbalize what is going on, and so we integrate the expressive arts into these other modalities to help them visualize and bring words to what they're feeling.
Okay. So we have a couple. So
Sure.
these could be broken up into different solutions,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But I just put them here just so that we can record it. Yeah. All right. So taking the expressive arts as your solution, what's one particular element of that? Do you do painting? Do you do movement, dance?
All of it.
Okay. So pick one.
Painting.
Okay. So how to ease anxiety through painting could be a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some steps around that?
So, I think, so what I would do with a client is to really introduce painting as an expressive activity. And so part of that would be, doing a little bit of mindfulness with the painting and getting in touch with their feelings, and just using the paint to create marks, movements, lines, colors that represent how they're feeling. And then we would have a more cognitive component after they finished the painting, where we would look at the painting together and they would either describe or create a poem, or, in some way kind of more verbally express what they see from that painting. And then we would talk about how that related to their feelings.
Okay. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did that fairly quickly too, right? Certainly it might take some time to sort of flesh out the details, but we just took a component of Madeline's business and created a problem solution recipe for her. So you can do this too. I hope you were kind of doing this as we were going through it. I'm going to just push this over here so that you can see the
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
How do you deal with clients that have unrealistic expectations? You'd be amazed how much that happens.
Yeah, no, I know. Can you give me a specific?
Sure, I was dealing with a CEO from a foreign country, and people like PR, he couldn't understand why I couldn't implement 60 minutes like next week.
Right,
Just completely out of the ballpark expectations.
right.
But he's the boss, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that too. And that's a challenge for all of us is setting those expectations. And again, I think it goes back to being an educator, right? And so it's finding a way to help your client understand, great, this is an excellent goal to have. We need to take these other steps first in order to reach that goal. So that's how I would handle it. Yes, Mike.
Actually, the gentleman was the unrealistic CEO. I had a boss like that. If I had a solution that I knew would work, I would tell him that it was his idea, but simply.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes we have to use a little psychology too, right? I think the other thing too, Jim, is I know you're in a similar field and you probably have lots of case studies and stories about other clients, and so maybe sharing not so much just results of other clients, but a little bit more of the process of, hey, you know, I have a similar client who wanted to do something big like that as well. These are the steps that we took to help him get there or her get there. So, did somebody else have a question? Jenny.
What if your solutions and your recipe kind of they're similar? So I'm a physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So a problem would be how do I feel better, and then a solution could be you could improve pain, you can improve range of motion, strength. But in a recipe to, like, say if you took the pain one, how to manage pain, you could still improve range of motion, improve elements that would be a solution.
Right. So I think for you, what might be helpful is, do you specialize in certain body parts, or can you treat all body parts?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe for you, it might be more like your solution is how to alleviate neck pain or back pain, and then go into those steps. And it might be the same steps for each one,
Right.
but it's a different, you know, you're not going to have somebody with neck pain caring about the solution for the back pain. So it doesn't matter if the steps themselves are the same.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions about these problem solution recipes? Yes.
I get the idea of the problem solution recipe, but my question is, what do you do with this? Is this going on social media?
I'm going to tell you. Thank you. You led me right to it. Okay. So before I get into what to do with this, I just want you to remember, this is about being concise, right? So this isn't Madeline's, you know, ultimate guide to expressive arts, right? Where she's going to have to come up with 100,000 words for this content. It's really about narrowing in on a specific problem, a specific recipe. So what we like to do is we record our clients talking about this, so that we help them map it out, and then we record them talking through each of their problem solution recipes. And we get the recording transcribed, we edit it, and we try to shoot for about 12 to 15 minutes per recipe, because that yields about 1,500 to 1,700 words. I think that's like 2 or 3 pages of content. So it's still meaty, but it's not overwhelming. Okay. And we add in their mission. And now you have an authority trust trigger, because you have something that you can publish. You have something that you can do interviews around. You have something that you can do talks around. You can take each one of these individual problem solution recipes and turn it into a lead magnet, an individual lead magnet. Or you can take them all and you can put them into a powerful authority lead magnet book. And then you can get that on Amazon, You can run a bestseller campaign. You can put out press releases about your bestseller campaign. And now you're on a roll to creating your own bandwagon effect. Yes.
So you shoot for 12 minutes, but then do you edit it down to a shorter length?
Yes. So because in the interview process, I try to make it really conversational, and I do know the questions to ask to help them get out that concise, results-driven language. But yeah, we definitely take the transcription, we edit it down, polish it up. But imagine having to write about this stuff on your own, right? How long might that take you? It's a lot easier to talk through it with someone. And yes, Mike.
Is this video or audio?
We use audio. I also have Zoom, so I could do both the audio and the video. And it could be something like that, where it could be a piece of content that gets turned into like a podcast, for example, or it could be something that gets turned into a written article or into a lead magnet. So it's really the interview that's kind of the hub of everything, and then it's repurposing that interview in different ways. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So you can take a day or a week or a couple of weeks to write out all of your problem solution recipes, but getting interviewed and having it recorded, if you just talk for an hour, that's going to yield about 5 of these problem solution recipes. So that's why we do it this way, because it's faster for our clients, it's easier for them, and it's more fun. For us, hopefully it's more fun for them too. So, like I said, now you have something that you can publish. You have something that you can do interviews around. You have something that you can turn into a book, right? So let me ask you, do you still feel like you have to call yourself an expert in order to be an expert? Yeah? No? You still do? We'll have to talk after this.
Use the credibility.
Well, yeah. Well, so were you one of the ones that said, yes, I'm comfortable calling myself an expert?
No,
Oh, okay. Are you comfortable now?
No.
No. Are you comfortable calling yourself an educator and an advocate and being a champion for your customers? Yes. So you don't have to call yourself an expert, right? Okay. So do you feel like you have to know more than everyone else? No. It's good to know what your problem solution recipes are. It's good to know how to package that, right? But you don't have to know everything about your industry. You don't even have to know everything about your problem solution recipe. Do you have to be the very best in your field? It certainly helps, right? I'm not promoting that you're not excellent at what you do. You should absolutely be the best you can be. That doesn't mean you have to be the best in your field. You just have to care. You have to care about the quality of your work. You have to care about your clients. Does it have to take years to build that expert reputation and authority? It can. It might. It doesn't have to. So, Mike, show of hands. Who feels comfortable putting themselves out there, not as an expert, but as an educator and an advocate and a champion for your customers? Come on, I want to see all of them. If you really don't feel comfortable, we can talk later. But most of you say yes, and that's awesome. That's so important to me. And more importantly, I know that it's what your best prospects are hungry for, because when you can deliver on this, you open their eyes to more opportunities and possibilities for their success. And that's priceless. So keep being a champion for your customers, own your authority, and stand out in your field and in the digital attention span economy. Do we have any questions? I'm sorry, I can't see your name back.
I have one question, one comment to your last. I found that when for 2 and 3, it actually helped me with the word want. Like, I want to know more and I want to be the very best. So it sort of takes me out of thinking, saying I am, but like I think of Julia Childs, how you wouldn't think she was a good cook the way she always relied on her guests to tell her what to do. And
Right.
she always wanted to learn more. But a quick question is, how do you send things out nationally? Is there like a...
Yeah, so I have a distribution network that allows me to send things out nationally. There's a lot of them. The one that I use makes it more affordable for small business owners. But there are things like PR Newswire, Business Wire. There's several of them, and they all vary in range. Yes.
I just want to share a cartoon I saw that kind of applies to number one. Show this guy crawling through the desert, and he comes upon a long table of people in suits and ties, and the comment was, "Thank God, a panel of experts."
Yeah. Well, I don't suggest that you just sit and watch people, right? Like, get in there and help them. Anyone else? Any other questions? Mike?
It's about time management, and it may not be your expertise, at least, well, I think I know the answer. All of the steps and the things to create this branding of me as an authority figure takes time.
Yes, it does.
And that amount of time, I guess, who knows how much it will be, but while I'm spending that time, I'm not doing what I'm really, really good at, what I'm expert at.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that balance of how do I carve out from my daily activities the time that it takes to become this authority figure.
Yeah, well,
A person like you.
You can, yeah, but I do want to address your question because some people are not necessarily in the position to outsource some things and everything, right? And so what I would suggest to you is there a particular communication method that you feel comfortable with?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Yes.
Do you like speaking, for example?
I do.
You kind of do. Okay. So I would just focus on that one thing, right? So you could put together, you could map out your problem solution recipes. You saw that didn't take a whole lot of time. Partner up with somebody in your business or maybe somebody in your family and have them ask you. It's easier to have a conversation about it. And then put together a talk about that. And come to the Enterprise Center. That's the beginning of you working on positioning yourself as an authority. Just focus on one thing. Okay? Anyone else? No other questions? Oh, Jen.
So if you have stuff, so like you had brought up that you work with those people, or if you done TV, or if you had an article, or any of that stuff, what's the best way to present it without being cocky, or like, like what's the nice way to do it?
Yeah.
And
So
do you want it like on your first page of your website? Do you want it on your marketing material? Like, I mean, how much, you don't want to throw stuff at their faces, but.
that's a great question. So you want to signal to people. You don't necessarily want to constantly be talking about this. So you definitely want to time things a certain way. For our clients, Landmark, what we did in the content for their social media and for their email marketing was really, they were excited. And so we tapped into the emotions that they were feeling. They were excited, they were grateful, they wanted to recognize other people involved with their business. They wanted to recognize their clients. And so the content that we wrapped around the fact that they were in this program and were nominated and won, that they were covered nationally, it wasn't so much about hey, look at us, we're awesome. It was more about, we're really excited and honored and humbled about this. I actually call it a humble brag post that we put together for people. And it is about not just talking about you, but making sure that you're saying, we really appreciate our clients. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't have happened. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
And to your question about on your homepage, if you're in the media, you can just take some of the best media placements that you have and take some of those logos and put those on your homepage. Jim?
How do you get clients to agree to what is success? Because I found clients very often moving the goalpost after you've started the work.
I write it down.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a conversation about what does success look like for you? What are your goals? What are your objectives? What are some of those goals that, you know, maybe we can't necessarily achieve with this particular thing, but that we're going to be using this to work towards? I have client agreements, and
See them sign something.
I have them sign something. And I get, and still I get the goalpost moving. I say,
Yep.
well, this is what we agreed to. If you want to do this, then we're going to have to put something new together.
Mm.
Yes. Thank you. That was great today.
Thank you.
So my name is Pamela. So on, you mentioned Facebook and Facebook Lives. So if you are using your authority content to market on your Facebook Live page, your business page, do you think daily content is overload on Facebook Lives, or is there, I mean, I understand that based on the needs and the goals, but do you have a recommendation on lives versus other types of content?
My recommendation is it depends on your audience and what you have promised to them, what they expect from you, what that interaction is. Are they even on Facebook? So I think it always goes back to your audience. If you're telling your audience, I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live every week on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, then yes, you need to do that, right? Because they're expecting you to be there. If you're telling them that and nobody's showing up, then maybe that's not where your audience is. Maybe you want to hop over to LinkedIn. So you don't want to overwhelm people with too much information, but it's not so much about the frequency of which you're giving that information. It's really about knowing what your audience wants from you. Okay.
And those lives are better at a consistent scheduled time, so they know when, or is it?
It's audience dependent. I would suggest doing a survey with your audience and asking them, what do they want? What do they want content on? Do they want it on a regular basis? With Facebook Live, it gets recorded too, right? So you can always sort of merchandise that back, right? So if they don't show up, they can still get that content.
Yeah, I heard LinkedIn starting LinkedIn Live now too.
Yeah, I do see a lot of, I don't know if it's live video, but I do see a lot more video on LinkedIn. Yeah. So, but don't think of it so much as like the platform or the channel. Think about it more of how can this content help my audience? Does that make sense?
And also, and I work in digital marketing, so what you usually want to do is like think about the natural evolution or the flow of your business, right? Like if you're that cabinet maker and you do a cabinet install once a month, then that's like some interesting content that you can present, but you can only really present it real time once a month, right? Yeah. Or if you're like a seafood distributor and you get new fresh stuff every day, maybe that's something that you're going to post every single day, right? Because that's relevant. So just like think about your natural evolution of the business. Otherwise, I mean, if you're buying an audience, you know, and you're creating lookalike audiences and stuff, then maybe you use some pre-recorded content. You're targeting you. But regardless, if you're doing an organic post, you're probably only going to see like 13% of your followers anyways, organically with Facebook. So, yeah.
Great. Yes.
Can you just speak a little bit about the difference for authority marketing when you're selling a product versus a service, when you're not the, you know, it's an external product as opposed to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing. You're looking to create these authority pieces around your product instead of around yourself or around your business. So still, you can get news articles about your product. You can be interviewed on TV about your product. You can take your product and apply that to a specific problem solution topic and put together a talk around that topic, but then you're positioning your product as a solution, right? Does that make sense?
And then where's the distinction between your product and your company as far as your story? You know,
They might be connected. So I was watching a show, I think it's called American Makers, and one of the contestants made a product, I think it's called Second Skull. And so they made this product that goes underneath athletic helmets to protect kids from concussions. And there was this gentleman had a specific personal story about his son getting hit with a baseball, I think it was. And that was the inspiration for creating this product. So he does share that story, but I noticed that the company actually pulls in a lot of professional athletes and have them sort of telling their stories around it too. So I think it can be a mix. You know, if there really is a very personal connection between the business owner and the business and why this product was invented or why it exists, then you should definitely be sharing that. Yep. Did somebody have a question over here? Okay. So does that make sense, Kathy? Great. Any other questions?
Do you do a completely different strategy for print media versus digital? I mean, as far as the information going out.
It's less about the medium. It's sort of more about what the client wants, and there are different strategies. So some clients just they want to get those placements under their belt, and so that's when we work on putting together press releases. When we actually have news to announce, we'll go the press release route. If they're really looking to be featured in a newspaper, for an example, that's really more media relations strategy that we would apply. So it just depends. But if we put out a press release, it's possible that a newspaper could just pick that up and publish it, or see it and say, you know what, we want to interview this person.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
Have you ever run into, I'm sure you have, potential clients where they just weren't going to agree with you and you had to walk? You know?
I have.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be really selective about the clients that I work with, but you know, sometimes that does happen. Sometimes, you know, your filtering process isn't super fine-tuned, and you get clients who aren't a good match, and you do have to say goodbye.
Sometimes you find clients that they don't want to listen.
Yeah.
They've already made up their mind. They're just looking for the right person to do what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge sometimes when you've got somebody who has a particular vision, but then they're constantly sort of changing that, and they're not super open to suggestions. I really try my best to make it work, but there are occasionally those times where I will say, you know what, this isn't working and it's not a good fit. You'd be better off with so-and-so.
Sometimes I'm on the inside of companies, and I've found that they won't listen to the internal people, but they will listen to a consultant.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll start bringing in a consultant.
Well, it's like having children, right? Like they'll listen to the grandparents or you know, their friends' parents, but they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Oh, yes. Yes, if you would like, I don't know if Leslie, if I send you the PowerPoint, can you distribute it? Yeah, okay, so I'll send it to Leslie and she'll send it out like that. I